Good evening and welcome. The video of this meeting is streamed on YouTube and will also be available on Facebook and the Village website. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Clerk Saladino to call the roll.
Trustee Augustine.
Here.
Trustee Gale.
Here.
Trustee McGee. Trustee O'Brien. Trustee Peterson.
Here.
Trustee Thompson.
Here.
President Kukler.
Here. And Trustee McGee is out ill, and Trustee O'Brien is out at a family event out of state. But we do have a quorum, and we can go forward. I'd like to start by wishing everyone a happy Columbus Day and just People's Day. Bears Monday Night Football night, whatever other events are going on. We're going to talk during this President's Report about two things. And maybe it makes sense to try to keep them in order. So if you're going to talk as a resident or a visiting public, there's A and B. So 2A is going to speak about the e-bikes, e-scooters, and electric mobility devices of any nature. And B is talking about the regulation of intoxicating products containing unregulated hemp, THC, and kratom. That's both for infused beverages and other products. I don't expect that the board tonight will be taking any action on either of those. It's really a chance for the board to discuss it, to hear from any residents that want to comment on the matter, and we'll do it again in 2 weeks. However, in 2 weeks, we may be voting on it. So I would invite anybody who is interested in the matter to feel free to email the board in the next 2 weeks, as well as come to the meeting. I'm going to ask Clerk Saladino to invite the audience to stand and lead in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
You just missed the Pledge of Allegiance. If you were just 30 seconds quicker, we could have somebody lead in the Pledge of Allegiance, or maybe two people. So first up, and perfect timing, is a discussion on the regulations of e-bikes, e-scooters, and electric mobility devices. The topic is of conversation really throughout the country, but it's been raised in our immediate area, in our general area, in our local area, in our state. And it's really been a hot topic. The Village Police Department has received numerous complaints of people riding recklessly, going through controlled intersections in an unsafe manner, and near misses or even collisions with both vehicles and pedestrians. At a recent town hall meeting held by the police department, and we thank Chief Griffin, several residents expressed concern about electric bikes and electric scooters and urged the village to adopt additional regulations. Many other Illinois municipalities have recently adopted regulations or prohibitions on electric bikes, scooters, and other types of electric vehicles. The purpose of tonight's discussion is to gather thoughts from the public as well as the trustees on the regulation of these vehicles. The discussion will then inform the consideration of any regulations deemed suitable and addressing the concerns that have been raised. And so at this time, first, I'm not sure if we are going to want to hear an overview from the attorney, kind of giving it, or Chief Griffin, and then hear from the public. So maybe if you could just tell us.
Yeah, I can certainly give you an overview. Starting with e-bikes, e-scooters, and electric mobility devices. So in your packet is a fairly extensive memo that discusses both the various state rules that apply as well as our local regulations that would apply to these types of vehicles. The essence of the issue here is that you have, under the Illinois Vehicle Code, regulations on certain types of e-bikes The low-speed e-bikes, the ones that are defined by the state law, are those that primarily go up to 28 miles an hour. The issue with the state law is what happens to those that don't meet the strict definition of an e-bike under the state law, because either mechanically it operates slightly differently or it goes above the given speed limitations. So it's set forth in that memo, there's a class 1, class 2, class 3 low-speed electric bicycle definition. There are a lot of benefits to e-bikes. So I don't want to make it sound, like this is something that's all negative. It's a mobility assistance device for those who may not necessarily be able, may be differently abled and have trouble operating a bicycle. They provide for commuting, and there's benefits certainly to getting cars off the streets. But the problem is also this gap in the state law that allows somebody to operate them in ways that either are essentially unregulated, or at least they don't fit neatly into our own regulations. On the e-scooter front, you have vehicles under the state vehicle code that are called low-speed electric scooters, which are regulated by state law. You have to be 18 years old to operate a low-speed electric scooter. The low-speed electric scooters are those that are going slow, under 10 miles an hour. The problem are the high-speed electric scooters are completely unregulated by the state. So that is the vast majority of these e-scooters that you see go faster than the 10 miles an hour, and there is no age restriction. There are no state rules about equipment. There are no state rules about locations where they can be operated. And those are what most people are using, whether they are in the city of Chicago and are rental, divvy e-scooters, or children and others who are using them, for various uses, go faster. Then you have e-motos. Those are devices that don't really qualify as e-bikes or e-scooters, but you may see on the roads. They range from what are called one-wheels. They can be these electric unicycles, which I know sounds almost like a circus thing. It's not. They look kind of like somebody out of the movie Tron. But they're devices that can go 30 to 60 to 70 to 80 miles an hour. There are also devices that, while they are labeled as e-bikes, and if you go on, for example, Amazon, and you do a search for an e-bike, virtually everyone that comes up does not satisfy the definition under the state law, the vehicle code, as an e-bike. Instead, they are essentially mini motorcycles that are not regulated by state law, aren't registered and titled, and don't fall within those regulations. But they go speeds, depending on what they are, from 20, 30, 40, 80 miles an hour. And again, there aren't regulations under state law on age or really restrictions on where you can use them. You also have situations with all these devices, whether they're e-bikes, e-scooters, e-motos, in which there's the design speed and the speed capability is set either by the equipment itself that can be easily modified to go faster, or software, where depending on the device, you could go on YouTube and look up ways to modify the software, or on other websites, and with a few clicks be able to change the capability of a device. So instead of it capping out at a speed that many would think is reasonable, you could make it go much faster. So what a lot of municipalities have been doing or considering in the Chicagoland area are local regulations on these devices. And there are multiple ways, if you feel that regulations are appropriate, that you would be able to regulate them. Now, one of the weird anachronisms in the law that we have to address is that we do not have authority to do things that are less restrictive than the Illinois Vehicle Code. So the biggest question that we often get about these is, can we change the age restrictions, for example, on a low-speed scooter? And the answer is no. You have to be 18 years old under Illinois law to ride a low-speed scooter. We would not have the authority to say we're going to allow 16-year-olds to ride a low-speed scooter. With e-bikes, there are regulations on certain e-bikes that you have to be, for example, a class 3 low-speed electric bicycle, you have to be 16 years of age or older. We don't have authority to make that age 12, right? We have to comply with the vehicle code, but we can be stricter. So we can adopt rules for e-bikes, e-scooters, e-motos that are indeed more strict. Now, as I said, we have a range of things. So under our current code, we do have some regulations on the books. We have rules on things like reckless conduct. We have rules that no vehicle may be driven upon any highway of this village at a speed which is greater than reasonable and proper with regard to traffic conditions. Not very specific, but certainly if somebody was truly operating in a way that it creates a danger, we certainly can, we have rules on the books for that. No person may drive or operate any vehicle within the village carelessly or without due caution and circumspection. You can't operate a vehicle in a way that creates an unreasonable obstruction to traffic. But to the extent that you desire to have more specific regulations, particularly on e-bikes and e-scooters and these e-motos, you have the authority. So that can be done through a combination of regulations. So you can adopt age restrictions. You have to be 18 or 16 of certain vehicles. It can be done by also education. So you have to be of a certain age, 16, but also have a driver's license. So you've shown that you understand the rules of the road, if that's desirable. There are equipment rules that you could adopt, that a helmet rule, that you in order to operate these vehicles, you must be wearing a helmet. You must have properly operating brakes. So those types of regulations on equipment can certainly be done. You could do it on locations, that you can only ride them on streets with speed limits that is 25 miles an hour and not on thoroughfares that have higher speed limits. You could say only on streets and not sidewalks, or vice versa, and change it up and say only on sidewalks and not on the streets. So there's all sorts of options you have, and it's a policy question of what you'd like to do. Now, in your packet, we provided some examples from other municipalities that have adopted regulations, and we've worked with the police department and have a sample ordinance of what regulations could look like in LaGrange. We're looking for direction tonight on being able to finalize an ordinance of which direction you want us to go. A few things, though, to think about in particular. If you desire to adopt regulations, is what is practical in terms of enforcement. There are certain things that would be very difficult for our officers to do. So if you said, for example, no devices that can go over, pick a speed limit, that can go more than 25 miles an hour, the problem with the police department of enforcing that is when they see somebody riding an e-scooter or an e-bike and it's going more, how do they know it's going more than 25 miles an hour? Or if it's capable of it, they're not going to take each device and then, pull somebody over and start then trying to Google, well, what is the maximum capability of a Model X28G? Right? That's very difficult to do. Certain things are easier. If you have a helmet rule, you can look at somebody and go, are they wearing a helmet or not wearing a helmet? So there's a practicality standpoint. The other point that I think it's important to note is that in the communities that have adopted regulations, that their biggest success has been not through writing citations. It's through education, particularly of parents. That if there's a clear rule, take age, for example, you must be 16 or 18, then it's easier for the community to understand what the rules are. A parent to be able to say to their child, I'm sorry, you're not 18 or you're not 16 or you don't have a driver's license. You can't operate one of these devices. And then in the communities that have adopted rules, they've seen ridership, particularly among the youth that don't meet that age restriction, plummet. people aren't using it to get to school every day. And they've noticed the bike racks at school aren't covered in e-scooters because it's working. So, the education element is a key part of enforcement. The other part of enforcement, particularly with children, is, in other communities that have adopted regulations, as they've made clear, they're not looking to do high-speed chases of kids. And, obviously, issuing citations to children is not the first choice. It's through education, and that's been the goal, but that has been relatively successful. So I think that, when you think about whatever regulations you may want, is how do you want it enforced? And is it easily enforced? And I think it's important to get the feedback from the police department of, is this reasonable? Does this work? Because ultimately, we don't want necessarily things on the books that are just impossible to enforce. So, it's very much, what we have for you, and you can focus your discussion a couple different ways. I think one is we have a sample ordinance in here. Is what do you like about it? What you don't like about it? What might be one way, or just in general, are you think about the categories of regulations. Tell us, is there a consensus of a certain age limitation? And we can take that and then put that into ordinance form, but we want to see if there's a consensus so we know what to do going to the next step of presenting you what would be a final ordinance, so you'd be able, we would know what to write. But I certainly defer to any questions. I know we've talked about a lot here. If the police department has, and Chief Griffin has anything that they'd like to add, but because I know he's been intimately involved with this issue, and we're happy to address any questions the board has.
Yeah, Chief, if you want to join.
Yeah, I would just like to add a few things. So our department has fielded quite a few complaints about the e-bikes and the e-scooters. I will say that those complaints are generally associated with juveniles. We typically don't get complaints about adults riding through the community on these devices. It's generally associated with juveniles. As Attorney Schuessler was saying, these devices, determining which one they are with the way the state law is written in the class 1, 2, and 3, that's very complicated for most people to understand or determine when they look at these devices, which one is which that we're talking about. The other interesting element to this is that, some kids have learned how to modify these devices as well. So you might have had a certain class, whatever device you have, and now it's been ramped up a little bit. So that's another issue amongst the e-bikes and e-motos issues that are out there. But like I said, the issues have really been mostly juvenile. Some of the complaints that we've been getting have been, just going through intersections where we've had near misses with cars. We've had other situations with near misses with pedestrians, kids going down the road doing wheelies. Just been kind of some of the most significant issues. And then, as Attorney Schuessler was saying, we don't want our officers, out chasing these kids. So unfortunately, many times when our officers have tried to talk to these kids on these e-bikes or e-scooters, they fled from the officers. So, the last thing I want is any of our officers chasing a kid. That could only have devastating results. So we don't want to be involved in chasing kids on that are adrenaline is pumped up and now they're going to go through an intersection to get away from us. We don't want to be dealing with that. So this is some of the concerns that we have. I do agree with Attorney Schuessler that, a clear message, an ordinance that can give us a clear message to communicate would be incredibly helpful. At the conclusion of this process, and if an ordinance is passed, we will be looking to create some type of communication flyer on that and then share that with the schools to pass out to parents as well as the park district, and then put it on our social media page and any other way we can to get that message out and communicate it. And the clearer that message is for both law enforcement and parents alike, I think the easier this will be to resolve the issues within the communities.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Ben. So my original thought was go right into the public, but I think maybe it makes most sense if anybody, and I'll start with a couple of general questions, have some questions from the board. then we'll go to the public, then we'll go back to the board for any additional questions and comments, statements, and things like that. One of the questions I have for whoever can answer it is, what are the current regulations regarding bicycles on sidewalks? And I can tell you, I think I may be wrong. It was my understanding bicycles weren't allowed on sidewalks in the downtown area, but they were in other areas of the village, like in front of your house. You're teaching your kid how to ride the bike. Normally that occurs on the sidewalk, but I'd like a clarification if anybody knows the answer legally where we're at with that question. Or maybe that will have to be researched and come back to.
You know, the ordinance is currently written is that the bicycles are not allowed on sidewalks within the village.
Okay, that to me is problematic for the reason I just said. I mean, who wants their 6-year-old riding in the street? And so that to me shows we absolutely have to make a change on how the ordinance on bikes, and we can start there. The next question I have is, you know, to me, there's a big difference between the true e-bikes that are bikes that have, you know, an electric motor that can assist but still have chains and things, and these e-motos that are much closer to what would be traditional dirt bike type of thing. And so regulating the difference there, I think, to me makes sense, and that's why saying class 1 and 2 bikes are allowed is beneficial. But my question is, if a police officer were to pull over somebody, look at the bike, be undecided as to this juvenile, can that bike be taken back to the police station, the parents contacted, and if they have some way to show it's, you know, a legally conforming device, you can, you know, have it without a ticket, but if it's an illegally bike, then we would give a ticket. And so one, could that occur where we could take the scooter or e-moto or e-bike back to the station with the juvenile? And is that something that can go to administrative adjudication? So 2 parts.
So if there is a doubt as to what the device is, generally speaking, I think the default should not be to take a child back to the station and to confiscate or hold the device until they affirmatively prove that it's legal. You know, we need to make sure from a due process standpoint that if we're going to detain somebody or take property, whether it's on a temporary basis or permanent basis, we have to have, you know, meet the due process standards. So if we have reason to believe it's illegal, that's a different standard.
Well, and that's my point, is the e-moto that has no markings on it, okay? And I may not be correct here, but I'm going to say is not, and we should draft our code so it is not legal. And so I'm giving the parent that really this isn't, but I don't expect our officers to, you know, be able to turn it upside down and somehow decide it has the capacity to go 40 miles an hour. I'm saying you're pretty certain this is an illegal device. Can that go back to the station? And if the parent has, oh, actually, I bought this at the local bike store, here are the documents, it's legitimate, then that'd be great.
So if we have reason to believe that it's illegal and they prove otherwise, yes. But you have to have that reason to believe that it is an illegal device to begin with, to be able to engage in the detention and engage in the taking of the device. But yes, you could. Sense. And so for example, if you prohibited, you know, if we were to prohibit certain types of e-motos, a lot of them would clearly be illegal, and there would be no debate. You know, so for example, the unicycle, you know, that's clearly going a certain speed. If you wanted to prohibit that type of vehicle on our streets, you could do it. And if it's a unicycle, you know, or a one wheel or one of these other devices, yes, you could prohibit it. The other thing that, you know, from taking a device standpoint, I do think that the best approach is a citation, without necessarily us having to store and maintain devices in a
Why is
police
that?
station. Because I think part of it is, once we take custody of it, it's not so easy just for us to dispose of it. There are rules that we have to follow and so forth. And I don't know of our capability at the police station if we have storage for a whole bunch of devices, but certainly we can cite somebody if they're on a device that's illegal and say you cannot ride it, and take this home and walk it home, and we'll cite you again if we see you on the streets, riding it around. And hopefully a citation would be, enough of a deterrent, particularly if you give them a citation that's not $25, but one that's, that has a meaning to it. Then we don't have to take possession of it.
And again, we're citing arguably people that don't have driver's license, don't have any IDs. We're asking them for their name, their address, hoping that they give all accurate information and then tell them, walk your bike. I have concerns about that. But is this something that could go to our administrative adjudication?
Yes, it certainly could.
Okay. Those were my questions. So I'll open it up first to the board before we go to the public. If you have any questions to flush out before we hear from some of our residents.
President Kugler.
Trustee Thompson.
So in this draft ordinance we've written up, it says, if you're over 16, over 18, you have to have a license. Would that be a driver's license with the motorcycle endorsement where they've gone through a motorcycle safety class? Or this, because, you can't ride a motorcycle without a motorcycle endorsement. It seemed like this should require a motorcycle endorsement as well.
So you could choose to do that if you wanted. The purpose, so the model, and this ordinance that has been drafted is somewhat based on the model for the village of Deerfield, which was one of the first communities to adopt regulations. And in Deerfield, the thinking was it wasn't so much about a specific knowledge of motorcycles, because some devices operate like motorcycles, some do not. It was about the rules of the road. Is that what they were aiming for is having somebody who understands, can you make a right on left or not? Can you, when do you have to, if you pull up to a red light, are you allowed to go through it? What are the basic rules of the road? And somebody who has a driver's license, no matter what type it is, would have taken driver's ed, would have shown that they can pass a course that that has some proficiency of those rules of the road. And so it was, that was the thinking there. But you would have the freedom to choose what type. If you want something added, like a motorcycle endorsement, you could do so.
Okay.
Trustee Arce.
Thank you, President Kugler. I have a bunch of little comments that I'll probably be sprinkling and talking about throughout the meeting. But just along these lines, it certainly makes sense to me, since we've been discussing it, which has really been on and off for a couple of years, which is really about the time frame that these things have come into this kind of problematic status. They've become mass-produced and therefore available everywhere and quite inexpensive. So they're all over the place. There's a reason why we all have to obtain a driver's license to operate a car, and some scooters. Motorcycles, different class, you're right, but I think scooters, smaller powered vehicles don't require I don't believe they do. Mopeds don't require a motorcycle license.
Not under the 150 cc.
Yeah. We do this because we are driving on the roads. We're sharing the road. And there are rules of that road that we must follow to keep us and anyone else on the road safe. The basics of simple things that certainly my son, my 13-year-old son, maybe doesn't know yet. Driving on the right side of the road. Knowing when to yield, what those signs mean, understanding and obeying these signs and signals. Being mindful of the things that might pop out into traffic between cars, and being attentive at all times, which means you're not looking at your phone while you're driving. And I think these kids have a hard time with that as well. So having a minimum age, I know we're looking at doing that. I don't know what would make me not supportive of that. I think having, as you've just articulated, Attorney Schuster, is requiring that ensures that they at least understand the basics. And that is really where the problem stems from. I live on a corner. It's a pretty busy corner near downtown. Just on the way here, I saw three girls on a stand-up scooter, no helmets, just racing around by just like central casting, cue the scooter drivers, and just before I left, and they just zoomed around, and they're just, these lovely little neighbor kids, and my heart is fearing for them. So they all go pretty fast. These kids are reckless on them. They're having a blast. I get it, but they don't know what they don't know. And you learn that when you've gotten a driver's license. So I think I can't understand how we wouldn't want that to be the basic threshold and entry level into any of these categories where we are allowed. And I think it's interesting that, the only thing that we have as a state law is the low speed. And I'm guessing because those vehicles were more popular for a longer period of time, perhaps, who knows, why Springfield hasn't gotten to these higher speed, different categories of vehicles yet. Could just be because they're very busy. I'm not sure. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I have talked to almost no one who doesn't think we need to enact some legislation and we need to do it fast. I don't know what we'd be waiting for. I'm glad to see that we're doing this. We had a great town hall about a month ago, well attended, lots of incredible comments, thoughtful comments. Hopefully we'll hear some of those tonight. But I think we need to do it, and I'm glad we're doing it. And I look forward to hearing the different points of view that we have here tonight and what the rest of us up at the board have to say. But certainly helmets, a minimum age of 16, with a driver's license, to me, we'll keep our community safer, and not just the kids themselves, but these people who are driven off the road from crossing the street with their strollers, just pedestrians, little kids walking around. One last example at the Park District a couple of summers ago was my son's last year in Little League, and these kids were just driving in and out of the park with these little mini scooters. They were on these e-bikes. They were going crazy. They were having a blast, and another kid would see it and go, "Let me try it." And then this kid who doesn't know how it works would get on it, and they're nearly knocking down my grandparents and little kids, and it was really scary. And I and several other parents said, "Hey, kids, you please don't drive those around here. There's a lot of people just standing around, and you're not really in good shape here. You're not using good sense." And they just kind of looked at me coldly and did it a little further away from me, but they kept doing it. Apparently they were back the next weekend. Shortly thereafter, the village worked with the park. Signs went up, and so this was 2 summers ago. And I called a friend of mine who was involved with the Little League just today before I came out to the meeting. I said, "What's it like now? How's it been? Have the kids come back on the e-bikes because they're all over the streets? Are they in the parks still?" He said, "Nope. Dramatic drop off. The signs work, the rules work, the parents see it, the kids see it, and if we put it in place, I think we'll be effective."
Thank you. Peg.
Thank you, President Kukler. I took some time to read all of this, and one of the comments that I noted and I think the experience of most of us is that we're seeing juveniles on the sidewalk in the downtown area, and that's because they're drawn to it, or Cold Stone Creamery, Starbucks, wherever they're drawn to the downtown area. And in the detailed information about other municipalities, I wrote down Glen Ellen, no e-bikes, e-scooters downtown, sidewalks, which I thought was interesting. Lake Forest prohibits e-bikes, e-scooters on sidewalks in central business district between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. What I encountered were there were stickers on the sidewalk in Western Springs where in the business area, bikes had to be walked on sidewalk, which I liked. I like that idea, and I am open to suggestions. I'm happy to listen to anybody's comments on that, but that's something I wanted to share with all of you, because I agree with President Kukler that right now, you're going to teach a young child to ride a bike on the sidewalk. And right now, there's an enormous amount of truck traffic going on LaGrange Road because of the construction. So following our current ordinance of putting these juveniles on the street, sharing the road with heavy construction equipment is, in my opinion, an extraordinary risk, which I think we need to address. So please consider. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you, Trustee Peterson. Trustee Gale.
Thank you, Mr. President. I first wanted to thank the staff for their work on this memo and putting together the draft ordinances and everything. That's how my brain sort of gets around these issues. I looked at the ordinance and kind of that's how I modeled my comments and thoughts. And I do want to echo what I'm hearing here, which is, sort of simple is better. And having some sort of clear standard, I think is needed and necessary. And I like the draft ordinance that we've got here as a good point for discussion. And I had a few questions about it, just so I can get my head around it. And I think, Ben, you're probably the right guy to answer some of them. One of them was this definition of motor-driven vehicle. Is that because we're trying to capture all the other stuff, not the low-speed scooter, not the low-speed electric scooter, not the low-speed electric bicycle, but all the other types of vehicles or the other types of
and so right, there's a lot of variations, and so it is a broad definition. So just for everybody's sake, as well as those in the audience, under the draft ordinance, the motor-driven vehicle is any vehicle which the state of Illinois does not issue a title document, does not issue license plates or registration documents, and is powered by an electric or gas-driven wheeled vehicle, motor-driven cycle, other similar vehicle, regardless of whether the vehicle is operated by pedals with a chain or throttle assist. So it includes low-speed electric scooters, high-speed electric scooters. It's going to include the e-bikes, all not dirt bikes, but these e-motos that look like mini dirt bikes, the unicycles, whatever they may be. And really the threshold is under the vehicle code. If you need to have a title or a license plate, that's regulated by the state and not us.
Right.
But that's going to take care of almost all of these types of devices. And you don't get in a weird definitional issue of having, well, it has 3 wheels and not 2. And what is it, right? So, because we know, and you're watching it happen, it's not just scooters and e-bikes, but there's a million variations.
Right.
And so we're trying to be comprehensive.
Right. Which is good. Great. That's I like that. And then I think you touched on it, but the 16-18 thing, that's because of state law, right? And we can't.
So we have this weird anachronism in here, and I know it reads kind of funny to say you have to be 16 with a driver's license, for these devices, except low-speed scooters in which you have to be 18. But that's because we can't really differ from the state law. And that's in state law, if you are on an e-scooter that's less than 10 miles an hour, you have to be 18.
Right. Okay. And then on the we've got this adult responsibility section here too, and I just was wondering what is direct control? Is that a term of art? Is that just statutory drafting? What does that mean?
Yeah. So this provision says no adult who is in direct control of a minor under the age of 16 shall permit that minor in their control to violate any provisions of this chapter. So the idea with that provision is direct control means the parents there on the sidewalk, the parents there on the driveway, and is allowing their child, and while they're controlling them, to operate one of these vehicles illegally. And the idea is you would be able, if you want, I know our police's, and I assume our police's intent is not necessarily to give everybody a citation,
right.
But if they believe that it's worthy of a citation, they could issue it to the child. They could also issue it to the parent for allowing the violation, right? So if the parent were, now that's different than indirect control, meaning, you're at work and you don't know that your 13-year-old is out joyriding in a way that violates the ordinance. The intent is not necessarily to cite that parent. It's when the parent is there in the presence, allowing it to occur in violation of our law.
Great. Then one last question. I think this might be for the chief. What's the current helmet requirement for bicycle riding? If you're riding a bike, is there a helmet requirement or not? Or maybe Ben knows.
Yeah, I'll confirm, but I don't believe we have a helmet requirement for bicycles.
Right.
We don't have a helmet requirement in Illinois, I don't think, for any
Right.
any device of any type.
Correct.
Right,
There's not a
okay.
helmet requirement for motorcycles in Illinois
Right.
specifically.
Right. Okay. All right. I wanted to get some background on that. So okay, that was it. Those are my comments. Thanks.
And so I'm going to follow kind of with the helmet type rules. And I know mopeds are licensed titled vehicles, correct? Mm-hmm. But the law is if you're 16, you can ride a moped without a motorcycle license. Correct?
I'd have to I don't know off the top of my head on that one.
I'm pretty certain just because I know a lot of moped riders and I've never heard one say, oh, I got a moped, I better go get a motorcycle license. So, but my concern a little bit is making rules harder for e-bikes than we have for mopeds, especially the true e-bike. We don't have any rules really there are very few rules for bicycles. And so a 17-year-old that's riding an e-bike, on one going about the same speed as somebody pedaling hard on an I'm just not sure where that works. And so I do have that concern on regulations making some sense on what we're trying to do. I also have a huge difference of opinion, or I believe there's a huge difference between true e-bikes and the things that when you Google on Amazon for a very low price that seem much more like devices really geared towards preteen and young teens, and figuring out a way that those aren't treated as e-bikes. I'd like to see that done. But with that, I think I'd like to open it up to the public so that the board can get some of your feedback and let us know what your thoughts are. And somebody has to go first, and then it would be easiest if the next person actually stands a few feet behind, just so we have a line, and then there'll always be somebody there.
I don't know what the
So
requirement.
if you would just introduce yourself, Bob, and then just say, you can say your name and your address, and then
Okay.
your thoughts.
All right. Bob Nelson, 63 Bassford. Been a resident here about 35 years. I'm happy to see that the village is considering taking action on this issue. I've seen enough to conclude that these vehicles are being driven high rate of speed, recklessly by underage drivers. So I hope you pass the necessary education and the local regulations that you can. I'll just give you my two examples. I was eating at Aurelio's just a couple feet from the front door outside and had a scooter drive between my table and Aurelio's. I don't even know how the scooter fit at a high rate of speed with two people on it. I'm glad nobody came out of that door, or they would have been a very bad situation. I saw someone of underage, very young, appeared to be grade school, driving a scooter down Brainerd, passing cars, going into oncoming traffic at a high rate of speed. So I'll keep it short. I'll just hope you do pass the regulation. I've been here a long time, apologize, haven't really been to these meetings. Maybe I should come more often, but I saw this subject come up, and I thought it was very important to get here for a couple minutes, and hope you do take action. That's it.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming out.
Good evening. Randy Valenta, 19 South LaGrange Road. I'm very heartened to hear all of the very detailed discussions and the information that you guys are exchanging, because it gives me a good deal of assurance that the statutes or the codes that you come up with or modify are going to be effective in isolating and addressing the problem that we have here with the e-bikes. Just to put my personal spin on it here, of course, my front door is LaGrange Road, and I have the danger of walking out my front door and being run over by the occasional e-bike or something. And the speed differential between the e-bikes and even the smaller, the pedal bikes, is quite astounding. And the momentum that these things get going, they are heavier, by the way, than standard bikes. The momentum that they have going can produce a serious collision. But I also heard from Attorney Schuster and several people that one of the most important that are going to permit only 16 and over to use the e-bikes anywhere in LaGrange. So age as a factor, as the gentleman just said, he's seeing a lot of underage, and I see that crime 3-4 times a week down the sidewalks here of downtown LaGrange Road. So that should be a pretty easy type of enforcement that can get the message across. But then let's give them the carrot as well. Maybe there's an education opportunity through the police department that has been going out to the community quite successfully and interacting with our community that helps the riders of e-bikes understand what responsibility they've undertaken, especially in e-bikes. And can't emphasize enough that getting the bikes off the downtown sidewalks is definitely a step in the right direction. Any way we can do that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Hansen, and I live at Maple and Blackstone. These are my kids, 2 of them, anyway, half of them. This is Owen and Lily. They are in 2nd and 5th grade at St. Francis Xavier. We are very happy as a family that this discussion is taking place. Where we live at our intersection, it's a very busy intersection. And I can tell you, based on my experience and a lot of the other experience that we heard at the town hall about a month ago, this is the time to address this problem. We're on the right side of this problem, and now is the time before something happens here that unfortunately has happened in some of the communities around us, where I bet that they wish that they had had these discussions prior to some of those tragedies that have taken place there. So I appreciate the timing of this discussion now in our community. But from my own window in our home, I have seen kids younger than my son Owen here riding these electronic, very powerful vehicles through an intersection. They do not appreciate, they're too young to appreciate the rules of the road, stop signs, yield signs, how fast and how powerful cars are versus them. They just don't know. That is why I very much appreciate Attorney Schuster's drafting of the ordinance as he did, and the requirement of a driver's license education behind people who are operating these vehicles. The ordinance as drafted is something that our family supports. The Illinois state statute on this issue is a mess. It shifts the burdens of regulation, I feel unfairly, on local law enforcement to have to parse through all of the complicated minutia of what these vehicles are, their weight restrictions, their power, the classes. It's very difficult, and I find that where a lot of the other localities have maybe had a difficult time crafting an ordinance that might make as much sense, I do feel that the ordinance that was drafted is broad enough and it adequately addresses the deficiencies in state law. I very much appreciate the way that that was drafted. I also appreciate President Kugler's concerns, though. We live in the type of community where our kids have great access to the outdoors. The neighborhood is their playground. It would not be a smart ordinance that prevented things like parents teaching their kids how to ride their bikes on the sidewalk. Perhaps when the ordinance is drafted gives us some of that wisdom in one of the sections where it says that kids can, in some circumstances, operate these vehicles in the presence of a parent. So I think that I've been much in the business of teaching kids how to ride bikes in LaGrange. I think that if you're with your parent, I think that the police would recognize that this is a situation where a sidewalk is being safely and appropriately used for training on a bicycle. So I think that that's a concern at the margins. I don't think, and I hope, that it doesn't detract from the good ordinance that was drafted before us. One question that I would have for Mr. Schuster, and I hope that they can address it, I think it's in section 6420 A and B of the draft ordinance, and I think he did address it. It's for kids who are 16 years old who can ride in the presence of their parents. And then the Part B, I believe, talks about children who are 18 and younger. I think the distinction there is e-motorbikes and e-scooters. I think that's, and you addressed that distinction. So that's, I think that you took care of that. And I echo everything else that everyone else here has said. No ordinance, no law on itself is effective unless it is also coupled with partnership in education. And I know that our school community would welcome the opportunity to have police or any of you or people from the village come and educate parents on this. And I will say we're on this side of Christmas and the holidays, so grandparents who are very eager to buy their kids all the stuff, their grandkids the stuff that their kids won't, now might be the time for us to have these discussions. So thank you very much for your time, and I do support this ordinance as it was drafted. Thank you.
Thank you. And the timing was, in part, our police chief recognized the holidays coming up, and we wanted to get in front of this before, hopefully, purchases were made.
Good evening. My name is Ray Stetz. My wife and I live on North Spring, across from St. Francis Xavier Church. The other day, we were going south on Kensington, coming up to Cosset, which is a four-way stop, and we witnessed, it looked like a teenager on one of the quick, very fast motorized bike that had been camouflaged behind a car that was to our left, and we could not see him coming, and he passed that car, went directly, without even slowing down, through the intersection, and I just think it was very dangerous, and something didn't bother with the stop sign or even slow down. So we're happy to see that the village is considering doing something about that situation.
Thank you for coming out.
Good evening. Al Foreman, 56 7th LaGrange. I'd just like to introduce a topic that you might be mindful of, or I would suggest we be mindful of, which I haven't heard raised yet. And that's basically liability and, what, if any, insurance implications on this, right? And I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I have no idea. But in the old days where there was just cars on the street, we've all got uninsured motorists, part of our insurance, right? So now we got all these devices out there, which, do they fall under the, description of an uninsured motorist? I don't know. Or if a youngster on a device runs over someone coming out of the restaurant, I'm assuming their family is going to be, subject to litigation, et cetera. So maybe it's part of a whole education process, and, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but, just might be a little bit of a reminder to the parents that are responsible for their children that, there are some potential exposures they may, risk by allowing their kids to play with, these devices. And the final point would be just thinking from the village's point of view as you look at this, things that we decide to do or not to do, whether that could expose the village into any second guessing from either residents or, God forbid, a terrible accident at a later date. So can't engineer it perfectly, but that thought hasn't come up yet, so I thought I'd introduce it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cynthia Shilsky, 420 South Edgewood in LaGrange. This is a topic that I haven't thought about or considered but I'm just curious as to whether or not there would be any value in registering these vehicles. It seems to me that when my kids were younger, that we used to have to register bicycles. So would this make any sense, or is this just too ridiculous to even consider?
Thank you. And usually the registering was for theft or if it's found, but it's a good point, and we can discuss that. All right. Seeing no other comments from the public, I'll flip it back to the trustees. Kind of starting, if anybody wants to add anything to what's already been said.
Thanks,
Trustee
President
Thompson.
Kugler. You know, I was looking online and the pedal bikes now, and there was an advertisement on whatever Hot Rod TV the day. The guy's advertisement was, hey, buy this bike now, there's no license required, and it's a pedal bike that hits a top speed of 38 miles an hour. So the pedal bikes now, and I think yours, I think the ones we have only go 20. So the speed every year is getting faster and faster. So I don't think you can really segregate the electric bikes from low speed to high speed because, as you can say, you can modify and turn them up anyway. So I think we kind of got to regulate them all in the same group because now they don't even make them that go slower now. They're just all getting faster and faster as we turn up more electrical motors. So I think we need to watch it. On the sidewalk, you know, it's interesting because we do have, do we do this? We've got young kids that are learning how to ride bikes on sidewalks. So you kind of understand there's a 5 or 6 year old. Is there an age limit that we cut off?
Are you asking, should we cut off?
Should we have an age limit cut off? Because the other morning I was out walking my dog going down the sidewalk on 47th Street and never said a word. He came up behind me. My dog jumped him. Luckily, this dump truck had just gone past or the guy would have been in front of the dump truck. But I said, you didn't say a word to me and I couldn't hear you coming. So, and he was a high school kid. He shouldn't be riding on the sidewalk anyway. And you see this a lot where these high school kids ride on the sidewalks. First off, you shouldn't be riding on a sidewalk or on 47th Street on a bicycle before daylight. But I think we need to have some regulations that regulate what age kids can ride on the sidewalks, and maybe restrict downtown. We don't let people ride. I don't know, it just seems like we just have way too many people on sidewalks riding bikes because it's more convenient than dealing with the rules of the road.
All right, thank you. Trustee Eisen?
Thank you, President Kugler. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of, as we've all said, many of us have said, there's different categories, different classes. And one of the reasons we're here tonight and we're prepared with some of these, with this ordinance, is because we've talked through a lot of these things. We've wanted to make sure that what we do is legal. We've wanted to do what we know is enforceable, and we've had many conversations with the chief. It's very much in concert with the police and what they know they can enforce and what will work. This is not a law that we think will put out and it will be hard to enforce. We think it will somewhat enforce itself, but it won't be difficult for them to spot the issues. Anything, whether, and I have an e-bike, it can go up to, I don't know, maybe it can go to 24. It's also a pedal bike, but it's also got a throttle. I don't let my son drive it. I won't. He can handle that when he's 16. These are fast. That bike's very heavy. We had a resident talking about the momentum in the forest. My bike, I can't even very much. I can pick it up if I really, really try. I need to. So e-bikes, little scooters, big scooters, fast, slow, wherever we can simplify it, and I think we have it. In any case where it's not regulated, then it's going to be 16 or older. That is the way to go. It's too complicated in any other way to start picking and choosing which class fits. I think that safety is the reason we're here.
I'm not sure, when as a parent you start telling your son or daughter, stop riding on the sidewalk. It's almost foreign to me. Again, when they're riding to their friend's house 3 or 4 blocks over, that you're saying, go in the street, don't go on the sidewalk, and when that would be appropriate. So I'm not sure. I think for our regulations, both due to liability, if we make it, we want you on the sidewalk, then it becomes a permitted use. But if we outlaw all bikes in the downtown, leaving it silent as to bikes outside of the downtown, so if parents want their child to ride a regular bike on the sidewalk, that would be permitted. And again, it's obviously been the law. I don't think anybody knew it was the law, and I don't think anybody cared one way or the other. The police never said, why are you riding your bike on the sidewalk? And the parents, I don't think, commented on it. But this would be a way to clarify it. If we made it 16 with a driver's license, or I did have some students write to me and say, you could accomplish the same thing by making it 15 with a permit, because they do go through rules of the road. That'd be one area. But if 15 with a permit or 16 with a driver's license were to be the cutoff, that, to me, if your child is 16, has an e-bike, being on the street makes the most sense. That to me is a no-brainer. And so we could make it, all e-bike type things, whatever the age is, need to be in the street. That to me seems to make sense. I still like allowing the classifications of 1, 2, even with the difficulty of being able to enforce it, with sending the signals, well, this is allowed, so that the parents that want to, to me, there's a difference between a bike that goes 20 miles an hour and 38 miles an hour. To me, 38 is getting a lot more the moped and really should have a driver's license plate and everything else. So I like the classification if it's keeping it more a bike with assist than a moped. So those are my thoughts.
I'm listening to all of these, and a thought that I had, though, was that, and you touched on it when you gave your overall review, Attorney Schuster, is scooters which are ridden by individuals with disabilities. So I'm wondering, would they have driver's licenses? Is that the only form of identification? And the reason I'm thinking this way is because we have 2 train stations in Grange, and this is a reasonably low-cost means of transportation to get to the train stations. So I'm wondering if requiring a driver's license would present a hardship to an individual who is not able to get a driver's license and yet is somehow able to use a scooter. I'm just asking. I don't know if that's...
Let me jump in and ask Attorney Schuster. So our rule, as proposed or as thought of, with a 16-year-old with a driver's license to be able to ride an e-bike or however it's worded, when does that stop? Is it, or 18?
So the question is, with the driver's license?
Yeah, the requirement for is the way you drafted as a 25-year-old required to have a driver's license?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the way it's drafted is you have to be, with the exception of the low-speed electric scooter, you have to be 16 or older and have the driver's license. Now, if you believe that should be different, we can certainly modify it. And as it relates to somebody who may not have a driver's license because of a disability, a few thoughts. So number one, we do have an exception for electric personal assistive mobility devices. So certainly a device, an electric wheelchair or something like that, is exempted from these regulations. Number two is if somebody was unable to get a driver's license but came to the village and said, look, I can't get a driver's license, but I'm asking for an accommodation under the ADA, that would be something that under federal law we would have to consider, and we would base it on a fact-specific inquiry at the time. But if it's you think that it's we should change the provisions on the driver's license requirement, we can certainly do so.
Oh, I'll jump in there. I think that I'm concerned about telling, at some age, telling somebody on an electric bike that is a true electric bike, they can't ride it because they don't have a driver's license. I'd be in favor of saying 16-year-old with a driver's license or 18. To me, that an 18-year-old riding a bike is that's fine. I don't think that's the issues we're going to have and that we're finding. But anybody else want to comment on that specific thing?
I would agree with that. President Kukler. You know, we know where the area is, where the problem exists, and it's the younger kids. So I think once you hit 18, I think there's a lot more rationale there. And if they're not driving, there's a choice being made there, but they probably do understand the basics. So I would absolutely think that we'd make an exception there.
All right, Trustee Peterson, didn't want to cut you off, so please finish if you have any more.
I'm coughing anyway. I think that's a reasonable accommodation. I agree.
Trustee Gale.
Yeah, just so I'm dovetailing off of that, and so with the low-speed electric scooters, if I'm understanding it, it's 18. Is it 18 regardless of whether you've got a license?
Yeah, that's because it's the state law. We can't make it lower.
Right, exactly. But the state law for the low-speed electric is 18 or has a license.
It's 18.
It's 18.
It's 18.
So then we could, all right, so it makes sense then for.
Yeah, under state law, you are not required to have on a low-speed scooter a license, but you have to be 18 years old.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And then, we've talked a little bit about the different classifications. Does this do we have in the draft that we've got, Ben, do we have sort of our speeds sort of baked into this, like the limit speeds? In other words, in my mind, we've sort of said these are the classifications, or these are the sort of definitions, and then by the way, if you modify these, that's a violation of our ordinance. Does that sort of tackle speed, if you will, in a way, indirectly, or did you even think about that?
So, I guess the simple answer is that under our draft ordinance, we're not setting a maximum speed.
Okay.
So what we say in here, for example, is, put aside the state law, that any type of motor-driven vehicle, we talk about locations where they can be driven and where they can't. We talk about ages that you have to be. We talk about equipment, helmets and brakes and other types of things and how you operate them. But we don't set a maximum speed limit. We say that you can't alter it from its manufactured design.
Okay.
So if we could cite somebody if they went in and tried to mechanically change it or from a software perspective. But we don't specifically regulate the speed limit per se.
Do you know, is there some point where it becomes a motorcycle? Like is it like engine size? Is it?
Yeah,
I don't know if
I
the
believe
chief
it's
knows.
engine size, and there's some other definitional issues, and I can give you a more precise answer if you'd like me to.
But they don't really have engines, right? They're the battery powered motors. I mean, so I don't know that the e-bikes are really classified. These 1, 2, 3. I'm not sure why in our speed limits we need to go past 2 on regulating. Again, I'm not suggesting that we do roadblocks and start looking at what type of e-bike you have, but if a police officer sees some hazardous activity and says, wait a second, this is, and God knows what's going to be invented in next year, this thing's able to go 55 miles an hour, it's not a bike. Having some way to cite that, I think, is good.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Then I had one other comment just on the permit versus license idea. If you've got a permit, you have to be driving with somebody else, all the time. So to me, the license is the standard because you're by yourself on the bike or on the scooter.
That's a good point.
So, yeah. That's
all right. Trustee Thompson, ask your question, then we'll get back to the clarification.
One last thing, where we see people going on Amazon and buying the true e-dirt bike. So it's truly a motorcycle, electric motorcycle dirt bike. No lights, no reflectors, no nothing. In fact, Saturday night at 5:30 at the corner of LaGrange and 47th, there was a kid first in line at the light heading south on LaGrange Road wearing a hoodie and sunglasses to try to cover up the fact how young he was on that electric dirt bike. And it's like, that is an illegal vehicle, period. A dirt bike is not legal on the road in the daytime, is it?
No, for a motorcycle to be on the road, it would have to have Illinois registration and somebody driving it with a Class M license.
So I think our regulation at least needs to discuss that these e-dirt bikes are not legal on roadways, period, because they're not, if it was the gas powered, it wouldn't be legal. So these bikes that are never going to have lights on them or anything shouldn't be allowed on the road, so we can educate parents that are going to go out at Christmas and buy these things to say, don't buy that because it's not legal, period.
Well, could we, and I'm just spitballing here, could we put in our ordinance that it has to be a pedal assist, it has to be pedal operated, so that we then eliminate the true dirt bike, whether, anyway, because they don't have pedals, I don't think.
Yeah, if you made it where every e-bike allowed has to have pedals on, I think that would certainly simplify, because that eliminates every bike I see that's an issue.
So you're the way I view it, in the bikes I have, which is 2, or my family has, is it pedals, throttle, pedal assist. So that would be legal. It could be a bike. So I would like to see that, because I think it discourages the things that I think the panel is saying, these are the ones we really don't want.
Right. I think that's perfect.
Up here, one thing I haven't heard much of are the equipment, helmets, and as well as headlights and lit up back reflectors. I think a lot of the true e-bikes come with those lights and an electric reflector on the back. But I'd like to hear if anybody has thoughts one way or the other. Again, we don't have any regulations for regular bikes, but these are faster moving.
I agree with all of that, but I liked the ideas of they cannot be carrying packages that I saw in there.
Yeah, and that parallels some of the state regulations, but that's why that's in there, but yes.
I guess I didn't see that. I have a problem with that, I can tell you. So somebody that rides their e-bike to the grocery store is no longer allowed?
No, so it doesn't say, so the provision in it is, to be precise, so an individual may not operate a motor-driven vehicle while carrying a package, bundle, or article that prevents the operator from keeping both hands upon the handlebars or steering device. So if they have it on a rack or in a backpack, well, that's all fine. But the idea was, and this comes out again of the state rules, particularly on the low-speed scooters, is if you have it in your arm and you're only able to steer with one hand, that wouldn't be safe operation.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other comments? Okay, thank you, everybody. We gave some direction. Again, to the people watching at home, the people in the audience that get home and their spouse does, why didn't you say this? We are available for the next couple of weeks. Feel free to email us. Feel free to come to the next meeting and share again your concerns. It will be our hope that we're getting close and maybe finalizing an ordinance that could be voted on in 2 weeks. Again, those things are subject to what we hear from the community, though, also.
President Kugler, if I might just for a second, I just want to make sure I have the right understanding of the consensus as we go forward. So what I have here on my notes is starting with the ordinances drafted with some modifications. Number 1, allowing bikes on sidewalks.
Outside the downtown.
Outside of downtown, okay. Number 2, if you are 16 and 17, you have to have a driver's license, but once you reach 18, you do not need a driver's license.
For an e-bike?
For just e-bikes or all these motorized devices?
Well, first of all, it can't be for scooters, so.
Well, no. Well, so low-speed scooters, you have to be 18. But for high-speed scooters, there is no state rule. So
Okay, that makes, to me, we should have our rule on scooters be 18. The last thing I would do is encourage parents to forego buying a low-speed scooter and buy a high-speed scooter to try to comply with our law.
The three girls that Trustee Augustine saw earlier tonight, I know those three girls. Those are high-speed scooters, and those are junior high school girls.
So,
and they're very prevalent in this town. In fact, I don't even know if you can buy a low-speed scooter anymore. They just that technology has faded out, and this high-speed scooters is the way to go.
Okay, so that may be, I don't know. I don't know what a Lime scooter is considered a low-speed or high-speed scooter.
Most of them are high-speed because they go over 10 miles an hour.
Then I just have absolutely no understanding of why the state has their definition on a low-speed but doesn't have a definition on or a regulation on a high-speed. But let's talk through that. So the people that you're all referencing, we realize we're now going to not allow them, correct? Or are we saying that high-speed scooters don't have an age?
I think we're saying that if it's a high-speed scooter, you need to be 16 and have a license, because those things are coming just as fast as the e-bikes.
All right, let's get feedback on that.
Yeah, I think the way the ordinance is written is motor-driven vehicles. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
Attorney Schuster. So it kind of encompasses all of these problematic vehicles that are powered. So for all of those that aren't already covered or addressed with the state law, which is 18 or older, we're saying those need to be at least 16.
You have to be at least 16 and have a driver's license if you're 16 or 17, and at 18, you don't need a driver's license.
Comfortable with that?
Okay. The next item I had is dealt with the e-bikes and the classes of e-bikes, and what I heard was that it must have pedals and have a pedal assist, but it can't only have throttle.
Correct. That's right. What did you say, Trustee Ellison?
Her question was, is that until 18 or is that across the board?
No, I would have that just across the board, keeping it at e-bikes. If you want a moped, do a moped. What, Trustee Peterson?
When Mr. Schuster has gone through his list, please share that with the members of the board. If you would, please, your notes. Can you do that? I'm not writing down what you're saying, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. We'll share these at the end with the board, yes.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Can I make one comment about the age for the non-pedal? I mean, I'm thinking of some of these kids at age 16 going to their job. Are the e-bikes, are we not allowing the motorized vehicle simply because of the throttle and because we think it'll be safer if it's a pedal bike? Is that just our distinction there?
To me, and my why I like it is, yes, my fear is that the moped requires license plate and a driver's license. But with the invent of electric cars, electric bikes, electric motorcycles, and now e-motos, they kind of became unregulated. They're as fast as a moped. They're way cheaper to produce. So a lot of them don't have headlights, don't have taillights, don't have features, and are just bad. So making it more of a bike requirement gets rid of all of those. So I would still argue that 16-year-old that tries to buy the cheapest thing on Amazon and drives it at 8 o'clock at night is a problem. Ben, if you could continue, unless we're done.
So those are the three that I have. Is there anything that I missed that was a consensus of the board?
So we haven't talked about helmets, headlights, anything on the back.
When the proposed regulation, it had said that you had to have a white light and a reflector on the back. So I think that was already spelled out in the regulation. I think that should stay.
Okay.
The helmet law, that's kind of an interesting thing. We don't require a kid on a bicycle to have a helmet, or a person on a motorcycle or mopeds. I don't know how we require somebody to have an electric bike have a helmet.
We always encourage it.
Always encourage it, but I think it goes against state law, really, because we don't have a state helmet law.
We definitely don't have a state helmet law. Again, we may have the right, and it may get into an argument of whether we can or not. I mean, I don't believe we could start a state helmet, or I mean, a village helmet law for motorcycles.
We can induct one for bikes, but then we have to do it. I think we'd have to do it for all bikes. And are we ready to move into that?
So I hear what you're saying. Anybody strong advocate for mandatory as opposed to just strongly encouraging helmet use?
Can we have council look into it for us?
Sure.
Well, it's not illegal. You have authority if you wanted to adopt a helmet requirement, bikes, e-bikes, and all these devices. It's a question of what do you, from a policy perspective.
My only thing was we couldn't do it for motorcycles.
We can't do it for motorcycles, but
we can't do it for mopeds.
Correct, but we can do it for
bicycles or e-bikes.
E-bikes, e-scooters, and so forth.
Right. So why don't we think about that? We'll and again, if anybody wants to share amongst the board, you can send out emails. You just can't reply all.
It was just,
okay. Anything else?
well, just that regarding the helmet, I understood it to be just in the context of 18 or under. So the way we're kind of looking at this is, can we, if we're looking at kids who are still brains are still growing, a lot to learn about the rules of the road, asking that they wear a helmet, not necessarily every adult. If they choose not to. But in this case, I think what we're really trying to do is protect younger people with these. So I would at least be open to looking into it, but I wouldn't certainly, I'm open to all the feedback we might get.
Oh, and that's a good point, and it's, again, a great thing to hear is people from the audience or people that are watching at home. Share your thoughts. We're definitely interested in hearing what the community wants. Okay, are we ready to move on? All right. Thank you, everybody, for that. I do appreciate your efforts. And again, we'll get back to it in 2 weeks. And moving on, we got regulations. Yes, but you need us to stop the meeting or? Please continue. Okay, we'll see in a few minutes. Next up is regulation of intoxicating products containing unregulated hemp, THC, and kratom. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure. And kratom. The village attorney has circulated a memo regarding these products and potential regulatory steps the village can entertain. Tonight, we'd like to gather feedback from the village board and residents regarding these products as possible regulations are contemplated. And Ben, if you can start us out again talking about what your memo said. We do have a couple of stores that are selling these products, advertising in their windows these products, and we do have both the brewery, I believe, is selling one of their, at least one of their drinks may have THC infused, as well as other restaurants in town from national and international distributors now have products that are THC infused. So if you can kind of go over that, we'll do it again with if any trustees have preliminary comments they want to make. We'll open it up for anybody in the public that wants to make comments. We'll come back to the board for any other comments.
So the memo that you received, and it was, also worked on extensively by staff, and we're looking for direction from this board on how to prepare an ordinance, if any, to address these issues. Unlike the e-scooter, e-bike issue, we don't have a draft ordinance for you. But the story here, it really started in 2018 with the adoption of the federal farm bill, which changed the classifications on industrial hemp and made industrial hemp legal. Shortly after that, you had changes in Illinois law, where you saw the legalization of cannabis, but then also parroting some of the definitions from the Farm Bill on industrial hemp and in the definitions. And the simple way to say it is that basically what has happened is an evolution of chemistry involving products that have cannabinoids and the same type of effects of cannabis, but because science has gotten so far ahead of where the law is, there's all these products now that proliferate the market that are essentially unregulated. And also not only unregulated under state law, but also our codes here in the village have not necessarily kept pace with all the creation of these items. And so you hear in the marketplace, you see it on signs, you go into almost any gas station at this point and you see these products for sale, and they're sold under either as Delta 8, Delta 10, THCO, Kratom, all these various items that aren't regulated like cannabis. So with cannabis, you have strict rules about selling at a licensed state dispensary. But this is the loophole where you can go to a gas station and get something that acts like cannabis, but get it at a gas station, at a convenience store, and so forth. So we have, as a village, authority to adopt regulations if you believe that that's desirable, in several different options. One of which would be to prohibit the sale of all intoxicating hemp-derived products. With the exception of the products derived from the legal industrial hemp, but this would be essentially prohibiting the sale of the items that, are, that have kratom, Delta 8, Delta 10, and so forth. Second is you could allow the sale of products, but regulate them. So prohibit it to somebody who's under the age of 21. Is an option. So that would be an age requirement. You could require clear and plain packaging if you wanted to get into how these products are packaged, because a lot of them are essentially the packaging is unregulated and is unclear when somebody buys it what it is and what strength it is. So that way it helps to protect and mitigate people who accidentally take too much or people who don't know what it is from taking it. You could prohibit the sale of the products as a principal use or as a substantial component of retail sales. So for example, it might be okay to sell at a convenience store, provided it's not the principal use or you wanted to put some sort of level of sale, no more than a certain amount of square footage of the store can be used to sell these products. You could do that. You could allow the sale of the products, but only by certain types of establishments. So for example, those that may have a liquor license can sell a beverage form, but beverage form only, and only if you have a liquor license. So it couldn't be sold necessarily, at any store. So you could allow it only if it's on, for on-premise use. You could do it where it could be at a grocery store. You have a lot of options is essentially what we're trying to say. Or you could do no new local regulations and just rely on what we have on the books already, which is we have some zoning regulations that would prohibit, particularly the principal use and the sale of some of these things, but allow it to be sold as a non-principal or non-substantial use. And so it's kind of really, what do you think is the best policy? So we're looking for that direction. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer. I know that Charity, particularly on the zoning questions, can go into more detail if you'd like on that.
Let me start by saying Trustee McGee did reach out to me. She wanted to be clear that she is in favor of some type of regulations. She's also against, even though it wasn't brought up, allowing dispensaries in town. So I share that. Any feedback on my right and thoughts? Trustee Gale.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, thanks to the staff for putting together the memo and all the details with respect to this. I'm a big fan of keeping things simple. I mean, we already have, state laws and different regulations about, 21 and older to consume alcohol, other products. It seems like that's the model for us to use for something like this as well. It strikes me that that's that's kind of the path I would go down, with packaging that's, clearly marked and regulates what's in there. And then by, I think, using, as I understand it, I mean, if you set sort of, you've got to be 21 or older, that's going to roll into what types of businesses can sell and what types of products can be sold. And so it kind of covers everything. So that's kind of where I would start with what I would be interested in seeing.
Thank you, Trustee Gale. Trustee Peterson, are you ready or want to wait a minute?
I am going to wait until I hear the comments from everyone else. But right now, yeah, I think so. Maybe, yeah. But first impressions are, I'm leaning towards Trustee McGee's analysis.
Okay. And I'm probably not necessarily in favor of what Trustee Gale was saying. I'm against the sale in our convenience stores, even to age 21. We don't have a dispensary, which actually brings in tax revenue and has some positive things. Why would we want the local convenience stores or these other places to sell these semi-unregulated products? I don't see any upside. To me, where I could see or do see probably the upside is in the beverages. And to me, having it where you need to have a liquor license, and therefore the people buying it also need to be 21, makes sense. So if Trader Joe's has a product that is infused and it's a great seller, that continues. We're not losing those sales. If Milk Money Brewery has a product that is a hit, they're not losing those sales. But we're not worried about people under 21. We're not worried about, again, the brewery and those places are driven in about carding. I'm not so sure that a convenience store that doesn't sell alcohol is necessarily focused on carding, and I'm not crazy about the products to begin with. So, especially these packets that are clearly designed for minors, there's definitely there shouldn't be any serious argument that these products are not designed in the packages for minors with the juicy fruit labels and the different things. So that's my speech. Moving down.
Thank you, President Kugler. And I guess on the zoning, we don't have any convenience store that can sell liquor, right?
We do. It's 7-Eleven sell liquor.
Oh, do they? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So then, I would be against this because the packaging, these products aren't packaged well. You're going to get a clerk in there that doesn't know what he's selling. So even though the convenience store could sell it, I would not like to see these sold in a convenience store because they do market to younger children.
No question.
We're not going to be a big enough market to drive any type of special packaging. So again, like you say, if there is some beverage that can be put into, this is my only fear about having it in a convenience store. If it looks like all those monster drinks and Death Water and all those crazy names, if it's not clearly packaged and put in the beer cabinet, then we shouldn't allow it because there's too many sports drinks, too many energy drinks right now that have horrible names to them that are funny, but it's to draw attention to it that a kid comes in and buys it, the clerk doesn't know what he's selling. So I would rather have a complete ban on them, period.
Well, and I'll take that. But let me just ask Charity whether or not we could do something where if, again, a store, whether it be Walgreens, Trader Joe's, 7-Eleven, that has a liquor license, is there a way we could say, well, these products would need to be in the clear liquor section? Because I agree with you, it's hard to see which product is know,
Right,
what's in
correct.
which product.
There are communities who have requirements in their local ordinances about where the products can be displayed, that they have to be with the alcohol or cigarettes or whatever other restricted items might exist in the store. So we certainly could put something like that in place.
Yeah, right. And we, that would be, and whether or not we have a sign up or could we require, okay, if you're going to have this in your cooler, it has to have a sign that says must be over 21 to purchase these specific products. Would that be allowed?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Would that satisfy some of your concern?
Yeah, some of my concerns, yeah. But again, like you said, the drinks only, because the packaging for the gummies and all that will always be, I'm scared to go in and buy some of these stores and buy gummies because you're not exactly sure which ones you're buying.
Right. Well, I not exactly sure what you were saying there, when what you're buying, but I can understand confusion as to what's in packages that are on the shelves of convenience stores. You see how I see?
Thank you, President Kukler. I like the idea of the restricted areas. I think that's a good point. Did you say right now that these products, kratom and some of the hemp and THC products, are they at a 21 or over, situation? Any of them? No?
Cannabis is.
But the stores that are selling these kinds of things, they can sell it to any
They can
age.
sell to an 18 or 19-year-old.
Kratom, I believe, under state law is 18 and up.
18. Okay.
The other is completely unregulated.
Yeah. I don't know enough about this project. I didn't want the agenda I printed out didn't have this on there, so I didn't prepare for it for this meeting. And so whenever we updated the agenda, so I wasn't totally prepared for this conversation tonight. I would like to hear from some others in the marketplace on this, so I understand it better when we go to vote. But I would like to see some tougher regulation on it. Certainly, there is. Certainly probably trying to get younger folks to be interested in it. I would not support limiting establishments with liquor license from selling the drinks. I think that people who are 21 or older kind of know what they're getting into there. And limiting, certainly wouldn't want it to be a principal use. I see stores in other towns, that's all they're selling, just a giant kratom sign up there. I know enough about it to know that that's probably not a good idea. But where do we draw the line here? Because as my son gets a little older, and I'm hearing from my friends with older kids, there's kids and this started years ago. They're drinking these energy drinks that are really dangerous for their brains, and we're not talking about making those illegal right now, but those kind of fall in this category of somewhat to fairly dangerous for some of these kids. I've heard of some kids passing out from drinking them, just the energy drinks. The chemicals in there are significant, but we're not talking about that, and I'm not suggesting that. But there are a lot of things that the kids have access to that are dangerous. There's some tobacco products that are also pretty well and clearly marketed to kids that aren't, I don't think you have to be 18 to get. So I'm not sure where we draw the line, but I'm glad we're having this discussion, and I'd like to think about it a little bit more and see where we go, where we expand it, and where we contract it. Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All right. I'm not sure where we're at with that. Attorney Schuster, if you need more direction or if this gives us enough to tee it up so that we can discuss it in 2 weeks.
So my takeaways is have to be 21 or older. That liquor license holders may sell beverages, but must be put in restricted areas. The general consensus that I heard, those items. Did I miss any?
Well, a couple things. First, and I will open it up to the public, but I think Trustee Augustine was saying that she'd like to look at it more for like the convenience stores and things like that, and hear from other people in the community before we go. And then again, I haven't heard from Trustee O'Brien, so
I'm not suggesting that we're ready to adopt an ordinance. I'm just saying in terms of what is consensus, at least of kind of where we can look and explore those two items is what I.
And we can provide some additional context and potential frameworks for regulating the other non-drink products.
Yes, I'm in favor of a strong regulation and out not allowing those other products, and looking on the beverages that are sold at retail, having some sign, you must be 21. Again, it's not that the people that are buying it are necessarily confused because it's going to be in the alcohol section. To Trustee Thompson's point of sometimes these clerks, you're getting it. Do you know all the products? The names change so often and things like that. Having a sign up at least would be helpful to me. So if that gives enough direction, then we can move on that. But to the public. So if anybody has any comments on this issue, please go to the podium so that we can hear them. Okay, not seeing any. I'm going to move on with the President's report, and just a couple of items, 3, I guess. We just had Fire Prevention Week, open house. That was on Wednesday, October 8th. It was a great event, a lot of family-friendly activities, various fire safety demonstrations, always interesting to see how quickly, without sprinklers, things can go up. There were crafts, there were giveaways, there was a lot of co-marketing with other departments and things of that nature. We do thank the fire department, Chief Rita, in your whole department, on a job well done, and all those that were involved in coordinating this very important event. Skeltober in LaGrange and Halloween festivities. Skeltober has arrived, has come back. A great thing that took a brief hiatus, but it's back and it's wonderful. During this time, over 30 friendly skeletons will be on display throughout LaGrange, including in front of Village Hall. The skeletons are adorned in a variety of outfits and themes to showcase businesses and to celebrate Halloween. Everyone's encouraged to get out and stroll amongst the skeletons while visiting LaGrange's businesses and shopping and dining. As a reminder, trick and treat hours are on Halloween, which, as we all know, is Friday, October 31. The hours are 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. After Halloween, consider composting your pumpkin during the Smashing Pumpkins event held Saturday, November 8th from 9 a.m. to noon at the LaGrange Park. That's again, LaGrange Park, not our park district, but the Village of LaGrange Park, Department of Public Works, which is located at 937 Barnesdale Road. LaGrange and LaGrange Park are co-hosting this Smashing Pumpkins event. I know that Lyons Township and City of Countryside are also hosting a Smashing event too. Again, our event is sponsored or co-sponsored by the LaGrange Environmental Quality Commission and the LaGrange Park Sustainability Commission. October, as we've been talking about different safety, is Pedestrian Safety Month. During the month, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the U.S. Department of Transportation are spreading awareness about pedestrian safety and reminding drivers and walkers that staying safe is a shared responsibility. As the sun sets earlier and the nights get longer, the risk for pedestrians out in low light conditions does increase. So please be careful. This month and throughout the year, everyone is invited to join in with the LaGrange Police Department in encouraging safety by motorists, pedestrians, bicyclists. We'll go with e-bicyclists, scooters, e-scooters alike when traveling throughout LaGrange. And with that, I'd ask Manager Knight to provide a manager's report.
You bet. Thank you, President Kukler, and good evening, everybody. Just to note that the village's annual leaf pickup program began last week and continues through December 12th, or the first significant snowfall. Under the program, the village's Public Works Department will collect leaves that are raked curbside. Leaves are generally collected every other week from village streets. However, during the heaviest portion of the leaf season, more time will be needed. As this is a village service, no bags or yard waste stickers are required for the service. And for more information, please visit the village's website. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Manager Knight. Now I would ask Clerk Saladino to read the items under the consent agenda, followed by those under current business.
Matters on the consent agenda will be considered by by a single motion and vote because they already have been considered fully by the board at a previous meeting or have been determined to be of a routine nature. Any member of the Board of Trustees may request that an item be moved from the consent agenda to current business for separate consideration. Item A, a resolution authorizing the purchase of parkway replacement trees through the Suburban Tree Consortium. Item B, a resolution approving the purchase of a 2026 Ford F-350 from Sutton Ford. Item C, an ordinance authorizing the disposal of village property. Item D, minutes of the Village of LaGrange Board of Trustees regular meeting, September 8th, 2025. Item E, minutes of the Village of LaGrange Board of Trustees regular meeting, September 22nd, 2025. And item F, October 13, 2025 consolidated voucher. Under current business, this agenda item includes consideration of matters being presented to the Board of Trustees for action. Item A, an ordinance amending sections 33.105 and 33.108 of the LaGrange Code of Ordinances regarding the Environmental Quality Commission. And that would be it.
Thank you, Clerk Saladino. At this time, I would invite the public to come up for any comments on tonight's agenda. Seeing none. I think I want to talk.
My name is John Pluto. I live in LaGrange. Back to the, can I talk about the e-bikes?
No, we're here to talk about the matters on tonight's agenda.
Wasn't this on the agenda?
No, it's under President's report.
Oh.
But if there's a reason, because your back's bothering you, that you couldn't talk when everybody else was talking, go ahead.
Well, it just seems to me that any vehicle that's driven on the streets of this state should be titled by the state to use the state highway. It should be licensed by the state.
Yeah, I'm not sure when you use vehicle if you're including bicycles.
Well, these are motor bicycles. Let's clarify that. They have motors on them, okay? And they have to be insured. Your car has to be insured. So I think we're going about this all wrong, and this has to start out at the state level. They have to provide litigation that we can enforce the laws. And anybody that's going to drive one of these bicycles is going to need to take a proper test to get the license to drive either the smaller e-bike or the bigger e-bike. I had to do that when I got my motorcycle license 56 years ago. So I think the parking garage should have signs that say no e-bikes allowed in garage, because I noticed a lot of traffic there. And you can do that right now. And it says all of these e-bikes should have headlights, stoplights, and turn signals if they're going to operate on public highways. There's no doubt about that. So anything that does not meet the requirements can't operate on the street, and they should be licensed and titled, and they should be insured as well. So that is my comment on what I think about the whole e-bike situation.
Thank you, Mr. Pluto. Seeing no other comments, I would request a motion and a second on the consent agenda.
I move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Gale. Trustee Thompson, any comments before we vote?
President Kukler, as previously stated, I recuse myself from voting on any agenda items related to the village prosecutor.
Thank you, Trustee Augustine. And with that, I'd ask Clerk Saladino for a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Let me borrow your screen for this one. Next up, and really the only item under current business, is an ordinance amending sections 33.105 and 33.108 of the Grange Code of Ordinances regarding the Environmental Quality Commission. And I'm going to introduce this and then ask for a motion and a second. The EQC is currently structured to consist of 15 commissioners, tasked with the review of environmental and flooding matters and proposing methods to mitigate these conditions. Over the course of the year, the Commission has experienced challenges in obtaining a quorum to conduct its business. In consultation with the Commission Chair, a reduction in the number of commissioners serving on the EQC is proposed to address this concern. Reducing the size of the Commission from 15 members to 9 members will result in a minimum of 5 commissioners needing to be in attendance to establish a quorum and conduct the affairs of the Commission. The law requires at least half commissioners to be present. So currently with 15, there needed to be at least 8. If we move it down to being 9, correct me if I'm wrong, we'll need 5 commissioners. And so due to the inability to get a quorum, they have not been able to meet. And Commissioner Nassif had asked, and I asked her what she thought was the appropriate number along with staff. And I think everybody on that side agreed that 9 was the appropriate numbers. There are currently 10, there were until earlier last week, 10 commissioners, but 1 commissioner, due to other personal commitments, needed to resign. So we currently have 9 commissioners. And if this ordinance is adopted, those 9 will continue to serve. So with that, I would ask for a motion and a second.
A motion to approve.
Second.
And so for clarification, can this be by one motion on both ordinances, or do they have to be separate? There's just the one, okay.
Just the one, yeah.
All right, so the motion is amending sections 33.105 and 33.108, but it's just the one that's necessary. With that, I'd open it up to any trustee questions. Seeing none, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Thanks. Next up is public comments regarding matters not on tonight's agenda.
I'd like to get an update about two meetings ago. We talked about the water reservoir, and hello, Mr. Kukler.
Were you done? Were you done with your question? You would like to get an update on the water reservoir?
Yes, I would. Because you told me that it was 2 weeks off
I wasn't
a couple
sure
weeks ago.
When you were saying hello. I was asking whether there was an update.
I didn't think you were paying attention to me, and I just wanted to make sure that
done, though,
you
said with your
heard
question.
me. Okay?
I heard you.
Because I've been here many times and talked about this. The last water reservoir test was in 2013, and we didn't do any of the conclusions that they told us to fix then. And I'm still curious as to whether we're going to re-enter this and fix it.
I would ask Director O'Brien to comment if we know when we're either going to do any repairs or make any reports public.
Yeah, we got the final report about 2 weeks ago, and they recommended some fixes and some safety improvements. We are currently looking at them. I believe we're going to be budgeting for next year but nothing is per the report they were talking about. They were recommending the repairs and the fixes happen within 2 to 3 years.
Thank you, Director O'Brien.
That would be not cleaning and coating the tank for another 2 years?
That was one of the recommendations, yes, correct.
Well, they recommended that 13 years ago. And we're going to kick this down the can? This can down the road? It's more important than the energy drinks that we're selling in the store, the clean water that we drink, and nobody seems to care about that water reservoir. It's really a shame. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pluto.
Al Foreman, I have a quick question. It's actually not an agenda item. It's about tomorrow's Planning Commission meeting, and I'll be here for that. Okay. So on the village website, I read the announcement. It says the Planning Commission will hear a proposal, and then in the package material, the proposal is listed as an action item. So my question is, will the Planning Commission be approving or denying that proposal tomorrow? Do we know?
So I would ask Charity Jones to address this as whether we know if a vote would be taken tomorrow or not.
So tomorrow night is a public hearing. So that's why the Planning Commission will hear the proposal at a public hearing.
Great.
The public has an opportunity to come and provide comment. The Planning Commission is a recommending body to the village board, so it is an action item for them to vote to make a recommendation. They may vote tomorrow night at the hearing, or they have the ability to continue the hearing to their next regular meeting date if additional information is needed.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying. Thanks.
Right, but you should assume that they very well may vote.
That's fine. I'm just wondering how... I'm definitely showing up. I'm kind of curious to see how many others will too. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments from the public, any trustee comments? Trustee Austin.
Thank you, President Kukler. This one is for Village Manager Jack Knight. Jack, I'm just wondering if you've been to a Quarry Commission meeting lately, or if one's coming up soon, and if you could let us know if they've addressed whether or not they'll be winding down the blasting for the season anytime soon, and what their plans are this year.
I was at a meeting, I want to say roughly a month ago. They have discussed what their schedule looks like, and I believe sometime mid-December is when they cease blasting for a number of months and then resume in the springtime.
Seeing no other trustee comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And that passes unanimously at 9, I'll call it 32. Thank you, everybody.